Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Nice to see you again. My name is Kim Jin-hwa, and these are my group members, 최소연, 박정훈, 신지수, and Kim Juman. Before we start, please look at this picture first. They are, maybe someone in this class knows who they are. They are all famous detective characters in novels and animations. They guess who the criminal is and why the criminal has committed the crime by just analyzing all things they left at the crime scene, such as deadly weapon, footprints, and even the cigarette box around the place. Their investigation style, analyzing and guessing, is similar to what we call the criminal profiling. So today we are going to tell you the criminal profiling, that is a special way to catch a criminal. Unlike common investigators try to solve a case by using only scientific aspects, profilers try to get into the mind of a criminal by using all evidences they left at the crime scene, of course including scientific aspects. That means profilers work out to how criminals think and what sort of people they are. It can help police to narrow down the possible suspects, and it can also help them to predict what the criminal might do next. Then, what is the criminal profiling exactly? Criminal profiling is a process to identify who the criminal is by using all the evidences. Like hunters following track to catch their prey, police chase criminal by using following evidences they left at the crime scene. In this part, people who make this chasing much easier are the profilers. There are two major ways in profiling: induction profiling, and deduction profiling, 연역. Since 1980s, FBI started to categorize the types of criminals according to actions and psychological reactions, and they has made a big database. For example, if a criminal tried to delete all evidences they left at the crime scene, there is a high probability that he or she has planned a crime for a long time. Like this, determining what sort of person the criminal is by using the database is induction profiling. In this regard, induction profiling is like a sort of statistics. Induction profiling can basically be divided into 4 parts. First, behavior profiling, that using psychological approaching. Second, relation profiling, that is deciding whether the different crimes were acted by the same person by comparing crime scenes. Third, geographical profiling, that is finding out residence of criminal by analyzing spots that crimes has happened. And finally, linguistic profiling, that understanding traits of criminals through linguistic analysis. Induction profiling is used when a crime is relatively typical. However, deduction profiling is used when the crime is a new type. That means the crime style is so unusual that profilers cannot expect the characteristics of criminal by using the database. So simply speaking, making a new category from the beginning is a deduction profiling. Until now, I have explained definition of profiling and basic profiling methods. Since induction profiling is usually used and quite typical compared to deduction profiling, we are going to tell you induction profiling. From now on, our talk will be divided into 4 parts, 3 example cases using induction profiling, and conclusion.
The first case that profiling helped solve the crime is the meth bomber who planted 32 bombs during 16 years. In 1914, an exploded bomb was found in Consolidated Edison building. It was wrapped in very neatly written note. Read that, Con Edison trucks, this is for you. Nearly a year later, another unexploded bomb was found lying in the street a few blocks from Con Ed. Shortly thereafter, a strange letter is arrived at police. This is the letters from culprit. True to this word, no more bombs were found for 5 years, but during that time, at least 16 letters were delivered Con Ed's building as well as at police and movie theater. Also, even private individuals. In 1950, third unexploded bomb, much more advanced than previous 2, were found at Grand Central Station. Over the next 2 years, 4 more bombs exploded around New York City, and media called this case meth bomber. More bombs were found, and more angry letters, some neatly written, others created from block letters clipped from magazine, promised to continue the terror until Con Edison was brought to justice. Citizens were growing more panicked with each new bomb and more impatient with police's inability to catch meth bomber. Inspector decided to do something unconventional. Inspector called in Dr. James A. Burchell, psychiatrist who had worked with military and the FBI. Police handed the evidence they had gathered since 1941. He studied photographs of crime scene and analyzed the meth bomber's mails to the press. Comparing his patients, he assumed that criminal is paranoid man who had dissatisfaction with Con AD. Paranoia is a thought process believed to be heavily influenced by anxiety or fear and often to the point irrationality and delusion. Because of 80% of paranoid men were stocky muscular beasts, Burchell added it to profile. Also, paranoid men have trouble relating others, especially women, and usually live with older who will mother them. Also, he concluded that he was between 40 and 50 because paranoia takes years to develop and based on when first bomb were found. And Burchell claimed that he had sexual inadequacy through his lettering. He wrote the W instead of connecting V's, connected U's, which Burchell saw representing woman's breast. And he claimed that he would wear the most impeccable outfit of the day, double-breasted suit buttoned. And also, Burchell claimed that He didn't live in New York City due to his use of the term con accent. New Yorkers call it con ed. His language identified him as Middle European too. His use of dexterity was a sign of someone's Slavic root. Finally, Dr. Bershel publicized the description because if he is a serious paranoid, he absolutely responds to that. Thereafter, newspaper received 3 letters, and especially one revealed the date that began George Montesquieu's misery. Bershel immediately ordered a search of Con Ed's personal file from that era and found a letter from former employee named George Montesquieu, who had promised that Con Ed would pay for their dexterities. When he arrested, he admitted to his crime. Police found him and noticed that Dr. Berchel's profile is most accurate. He was a heavy, single Catholic and Puritan born. When the police told him get dressed up for a trip to the station, he returned wearing a double-breasted suit button. If police didn't receive the help from psychiatrist Bershel, this bad farmer case will be wrapped in the mystery. After this, offender profiling received the attention and gained the trust.
The second is 1999, the plotted kidnapping case. In this case, the linguistic profiling is mainly used to prove the crime. At late night, the police officer, Greg McGray, got an urgent call from a woman. The woman said, "My daughter is kidnapped. I just went to the toilet at the parking lot, but after I came here, she isn't here. Please help." However, the officer instinctively felt that there is something strange in her comment, because most mothers don't say, "My daughter or son is kidnapped," until it is confirmed that their kid is really kidnapped. So the police took her to the police office and interrogated her with a lie detector. However, she passed the lie detector that day. A week after the disappearance of her kid, she called the officer and said, "I just got a parcel from Kentucky which is containing my daughter's another glove." Sorry. At the parking lot, she said, "I found my daughter's one glove at the parking lot. But however, except that glove, there was no evidence about the kidnapping." So he took her to the police office and investigated her with a lie detector, and she passed the lie detector that day. A week after the disappearance of her kid, she called the officer and told, "I just got a parcel from Kentucky which is containing my daughter's another glove." However, the officer stopped it again, because if the kidnapping is for a ransom, there must be a letter about how much money the criminal wants. Or if it is not for a ransom, the criminal will not send the package like this, because it could leave the traces or evidences about the criminals. At that moment, the officer was confident that she was lying. So he took her to the police office and interrogated her with a lie detector again. Because of his deep and sharp questions, it is revealed that the kidnapping was plotted. Her daughter was an unwanted child, so she killed her daughter and buried her under the hill. To make the disappearance of her daughter naturally, she plotted the kidnapping and to distract the officers' investigation, she acted as she got the parcel from Kentucky, which is really far from her town. If it were not for the officer's detection about the unnatural word from her comment, this case might end unproved. Linguistic profiling is the practice of identifying the social characteristics of an individual based on auditory cues like accent or dialects or usage of words. Let's look at some examples. According to Newman, Michael, and Angela Wu's research paper, by checking the voice onset time of the phoneme of v, k, and th, we can distinguish whether the person is Standard American or Chinese American or Korean American. Average Korean Americans pronounce these phonemes about 40 seconds more than Standard American. Chinese Americans usually pronounce these phonemes about 10 milliseconds longer than Standard Americans. Second, according to Munson and Benjamin's research paper, by analyzing the person's voice frequency when the person pronounces the vo in Korean, 모음, we can distinguish the individual's sex. As you can see, perceived masculinity, perceived femininity, and speakers perceived as gay, and female speakers perceived as bisexual or lesbian. Each sex and even sexual minorities have their own voice characteristics. Like these examples, linguistic profiling is really useful tools to distinguish the individual's identification.
Finally, I am going to introduce you infamous Korean serial killer Kang Ho-soo. As you maybe know, he is a notorious psychopath who killed 10 women during 4 years. First, I'm going to tell you a brief biography about him. He was born in normal family and there were no deficiency in his childhood. He did quite well at school and he was considered as a kind person according to neighbors. This characteristic is quite different from other serial killers who had mental or financial problems in their life, which led them to have an antisocial emotion. In this aspect, Kang Ho-soo is not a typical type of criminal, and police say he is a hedonism killer, which is a special case in Korea. And he also had a favorable impression and good at speaking, which allowed him to easily approach the victims. He killed 10 people, and the killing method of 8 people were all same. The remaining 2 people were his fourth wife and his mother-in-law. He suffocated them by setting a fire in the house where 2 people were sleeping. Taking this case as a starting point, he killed 8 people, and his offending behaviors were all consistent. First, he kidnapped them to his car, and then he killed them by choking their necks, using stockings, and secretly buried them. At 10th crime, he was caught by police, and geographic profiling played an important role when arresting him. Previous investigation systems were focused on the victim's items or relations of the victims. However, in order to investigate the serial killers effectively, police use geographic profiling by using cooperative investigation systems and by installing more CCTVs. Geographic profiling is a statistics to analyze the crime scene locations to predict the residence of the offender. By using geographical information, we can with a series of crime sites. It produces a point that represent crime scene location, represent residence of the killers or workplace of the killer. In the case of Kang Ho-sun, police had hard time because he was not a typical type killer. During hard time, they found that the cell phones of the victims were turned off by the killer in nearby Gyeonggi-do Ansan. Taking this as a hint, they took priority on the geographic profiling. They installed more CCTVs and searched near Ansan, and after 2 months of investigation, they could catch the Kang Ho-sun. The key to solution was predicting where Kang Ho-sun would appear by installing CCTVs and reinforcing manpower of the investigation. This was the representative case which using the geographic profiling.
Until now, we told you 3 interesting criminal profiling stories, which is solved by special ways. 3 main methods of profiling, which is introduced before, are discussed. First, the reasoning mind, and second, suspecting linguistic discordancy. Last, geographic profiling. And first case, in Matt Bomber case, police officer reasoned the criminal's mind by analyzing small spelling or using vocabulary pattern. So police officer narrowed down a range. So eventually he find the bomberman. Second, in plotted kidnapping happening case, police officer McGray suspected that her linguistic something is wrong. Certainly, he checked her truth by using lie detector. However, he don't give up the suspect. So when he checked again, the lie is revealed. And eventually, he find the true situation, and now knowing the killer is mom. And finally, the Korean serial murderer, killer, and murderer, Kang Ho-sun case. In this case, geographic profiling is important key. A police officer could not reason his mind because in this case, Kang Ho-sun is different from the other murderer's characteristic. So police officer narrowed down a police dragnet in Korean Poimam by installation CCTV board and catching his traces. Did you feel interesting our stories? 3 interesting stories. Although you could hear this story just like fun movie or drama or Korean story, but you may enjoy these criminal videos or stories. If you want more information about this real criminal profiling, please visit website profileofmurder.com. Thank you for listening.